All right, back to it. I'm going to talk about Cont3xt. This is a new app that was released with version 4 of Arkimeet. It's a threat intelligence aggregator. So you can learn more at arkime.com/Cont3xt. It is basically a tool that helps to automate the task of gathering contextual intelligence from a handful of popular services that we call integrations. It enriches indicators or your search using popular commercial and open source intelligence sources in a structured, consistent, and thorough process to be used in support of technical investigations. You can also add links to public or private web resources. That makes it easy to pivot investigations into other resources. As I said, it was released in Arkimeet version 4. Toby implemented the first version outside of Arkime with his dad, William. Toby couldn't be here today because he is sick. But yeah, he did the initial version and it was awesome. And William Selesky came to us at Yahoo and said, hey, this is an awesome tool. We think it would revolutionize the threat intelligence investigations that we're doing here at Yahoo. And so Andy and I went on the mission to get this implemented, and we finally released it in version 4. One of the biggest concepts, or the most important concepts in Cont3xt, is what we call integrations. And these are basically your external data sources. And they are used to enrich your searches and provide the data for your technical investigations. It uses the integration APIs to provide the data that you'll see here in the demo. It comes predefined with default integrations. Some of those include passive total, census, Shodan, threat stream, virus total, URL scan, and many more. You can also configure your own, but right now it's a really big pain. Andy and I pretty much exclusively are the ones creating these integrations, but we'd like to make this more user-friendly in the future, hopefully with some other people's help. All right, so let's hop right into a demo. So this is the main landing page that you're going to see when you come to Cont3xt. Each section has a different purpose. When you issue a search here, the first results you see are in your indicator results tree. And your top level indicators are presented here. Basically, we parse out the data from all the API integrations and kind of give a high level overview of a search for a domain or an IP. You can get all the information here. You'll see more details in a second. Underneath this, you'll see link groups. This is where you can create custom pivot links, similar to value actions and field actions in Arkime. Basically, you fill in a link with placeholders, and you can click on the link, and Cont3xt will pop open a new tab where it fills out those placeholder values with the context state. And then you have the indicator card detail over here on the right. This is the detailed information from each of the API integrations. And it also shows the raw data, so you can see exactly what we fetched from each API. So let's start by searching. You can search for IPs, domains, URLs, emails, phone numbers, or hashes. So let's start with something we all know. So this is a little ugly right now because I have it zoomed in. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. This is just at 100%. I know it's a little harder to read, so I'm going to zoom in, but this is what it's kind of supposed to look like. I'm going to zoom in so we can see all of the details. So the loading bar that you saw at the top up here is a green loading bar, and it shows the loading progress from all the integrations. So in the back end, we're reaching out to each of the APIs, and we're requesting data for AOL.com. For example, we're requesting for who is data to populate some of this information here. So it's going to also show errors at the top. So if one of the API integration fails, it's going to show you which failed, and it's going to have a little red section to that bar as well. It might seem like the request is taking a while. This one didn't because I had already cached the results. But it might seem like it's taking a long time because our responses are limited to the APIs that we're requesting. So if passive total takes a long time for request, it's going to look like everything's hanging, but we do progressive loading. So as each integration comes back with results, we're populating the UI with those results. This still, even though it seems like it might take a long time, it's still a huge time saver. You don't have to go to passive total. You don't have to go to whois. You don't have to go to all these different websites to figure out, the data you're looking for. You can come to one place and we issue those searches for you and aggregate everything here. The results go to Elasticsearch or OpenSearch if you're using OpenSearch, and they're cached in LMDB to avoid API quota waste. So for example, things like Shodan, they give you like a max number of connections or API requests per month. You don't want to burn through those, so we want to cache as much as possible. You can always override the cache by using the skip cache button or Shift-C. TTL, what's the TTL for these, Andy?
Yes, there is a TTL for caching. You can change it per service, or you can have a global one. That's up to you as the admin person. By default, I want to say, I can't remember, I think it's 2 hours, except for virus total. Virus total, we do a day by default, just because.
So we automatically extract IPs as well. So AOL.com has all of these IPs associated with. So these are like subsections. So we're extracting all that data as well and getting the results from the API integrations as well here. You can add tags to your searches. This is really helpful if you have some incident tracking numbers you want to add, or maybe some JIRA ticket numbers. So you can do something like this. And now every time you search for this, it's going to tag this search with these tags. This is really useful for the history section. So you can see what you've been searching. Maybe you had a long weekend. You can pick up where you left off. Each of these buttons represents an API integration. Whois, passive total whois, passive total DNS, etc. Each of these buttons is going to open a section where you can just see all of the details, which I'll go to in just a second. These items here we call tidbits. These are little pieces of information that we think are really important. We want them to be first and foremost, and we add these from the data in all of the API integration results. So we see the time that this was registered, the registrar, and threat stream tags. You would also see a malicious flag as well if this was a malicious domain, and it would look similar to this. We also have views. Views is similar to Arkime in the name, but not in implementation. An integration view in Cont3xt is basically a way to restrict your search to only certain API integrations. So I might want to see only passive total results. So I'm going to only search these API integrations. And this can also help with API quota waste. So you don't want to search Shodan for a specific search. You can toggle this on and off here. You can save your integration views here as well as on the settings page. By default, all are selected, and you can configure those on the settings page, like I said. Now let's dive into some of the detailed results. So this is what an integration card looks like. These are the details from the whois result from AOL.com. You can also see the raw data here. This is what we use to populate the content of this card. Data is displayed in different ways, and we try to be as smart as possible in how we parse it. So we parse dates as dates. We can have single values. We can have JSON values. We can have lists of values. We can have tables of values. So there's a lot of different ways that we can display the data in these cards. We define this when we implement the integration. We define this as a JSON object on how to fetch the data within what is returned from the API integrations from that raw data you saw earlier. Let's look at something like URL scan. So this is super ugly because I'm zoomed in all the way, so I'm going to go back a little bit. This is what it should look like, but that's kind of hard to read. So I'm going to zoom in again. Try to make it not so ugly, but still easy to read. So here we have a table of values from the URL scan results for AOL.com. You can click this drop down and you can search for all the fields or all the columns, or you can search within specific columns. When you search, your results are highlighted so you can easily see which rows are matching and which columns are pertinent to your search. You can copy or download this data as CSV. The copy and download functions honor your search terms, so it's only going to export these 5 rows. You can also copy or download the raw JSON that you can see here. And then lastly, on this card, you can refresh it if the data is old. So this is saying it was queried 6 minutes ago, and you can fetch up-to-date data. It will always show you like what the last cache date was, and if you think it's stale, you can use this button to issue another search for URL scan results. Let's dive into the link groups. Again, these are similar to the value actions in Arkimeet. These are URLs that you can use to pivot into other sources. So Splunk or Arkime or any other application that supports querying via URL parameters. You can configure these on the settings page. This helps to guide the investigative process and simplifies your team's access to frequently queried resources. So for instance, if you always search for a domain and then navigate into Arkime, you can come here, you can even search, and you can link directly to your Arkime query. You can pop open all of these at once if you'd like. I know William loves to do this because he loves to crash his browser. Remember, you're going to need to allow multiple pop-ups for this feature. The first time you do it, the browser's going to block. So you'll have to go in and allow that before you can do this feature. You can configure these on the settings page, so I'm going to go through that next. So these are the same link groups that you saw. This is where you will configure them, add them, and edit them. First, you're going to want to name it something. Like, I should have called it something. You're right. Missed opportunity. You can share this with different roles. So I'm going to share it with all Cont3xt users. And then I can say who can edit this. Cont3xt has a different sharing paradigm in that you can decide who can view it, and you can decide who has edit privileges as well. By default, you, as the creator, always can view and edit it. So I'm going to allow the Cont3xt admin edit access. Give it a good name so that, especially when you share this, other analysts know what this link is going to. You can give it a color to differentiate it in the UI. You're going to want to select which types that this link pertains to. So I want to see this link anytime I search for a domain or an IP. And then you're going to give it a URL. And this is where the power comes in. So you're going to add these values. They start with $, open curly bracket, And these are the values that are filled in when you open this tab from the main page. So maybe purple.org has a query parameter called Q. That's where we're going to put our indicator or our search term. And then maybe it has a start time parameter. So these values will be filled in by the context state when you click this link. You can optionally give it a description. This is good for when you share these things with other users. They might not know what purple.org does. You can also give the external documentation a link so that your analyst can learn more about this particular resource. So now I have this new link group. You don't have to configure link groups in this way. You can also toggle the raw configuration. This is just the JSON behind the UI. And so you can copy and paste and share these this way. You can also add separators. These help when you have a lot of links in your link groups. It helps to group them into different sections. For instance, if you have a bunch of different Splunk links, you might want to add those in one section of your link group with a separator between them and your Arkime links. And you can also color those as well. Everything is also reorderable. I've really pushed back on this feature a lot. I do not like drag and drop in UIs, but again, I was wrong. Everyone likes it. It's the right way to do it. All right, you can also configure views in here too, as I noted. You can share them as well. It's the same paradigm as sharing link groups. Lastly, on the settings page, we have our ability to configure our integrations. This is probably one of the most important parts. Each integration requires an API key. Well, not every single one. Most integrations require an API key. So you're going to want to add them here. You can also do this in raw edit mode. So you can copy and paste. Andy and I have a LastPass folder where we share this, and we just have all of our API keys in there, and then we can copy and paste them in here. You can also disable them on this page. Disabling them will completely remove them from the UI. Not here, but on the context page. So you won't ever be able to issue API integrations from your disabled API integrations. All right. Next, the stats page. This is kind of a dorky page. It's where you can see how long things are taking, whether you're fetching them from the cache or directly from the APIs. Here you can kind of diagnose some of the issues. Maybe if it looks like context is hanging, you could search for direct recent average milliseconds. And this says Alien Vault is our slowest integration. So you might want to disable that in the future. This also can show errors and help you diagnose issues with your API integrations. As I mentioned, we also have the history page. This page, you can see what you've been searching. It's particularly useful if you've been using tags. You can use these as a reminder to what you've been searching. And if you're a context or super admin, you can also see everyone's history, so you can see what all your analysts are searching. You can repeat the search at any time here. And if you have removed privileges, you can clean them up by deleting them. So those are all the main features of Cont3xt. Do you have any questions? Yes, it can be deployed as a completely standalone application. What? Yes. Any other questions? Does William want to add anything? Shane.
This be configured with right clicks. Like, can we take an ID and plug it directly into right clicks?
Like pivot? Can you pivot from Arkime into Cont3xt? Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I see that. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, so you configure a value action in Arkime that links to your context deployment, and then it fills out the URL. I don't know if you saw, but we base64 encode it. So you're going to pass in the B parameter, and then you're going to want to base64 encode your search.
We also,
you don't have to.
yeah, we also support
Yeah.
non-base64
Yeah.
encoded. It will automatically redirect itself, I think, to the base64
It
one.
automatically redirects to the base64. You can also input a defanged URL here, and it will refang it and issue the search. Yep. Any other questions? Yes, Matt.
There are bulk lookup interface.
Oh man, the question is there a bulk lookup interface? This is on the roadmap for sure. It's something I push back on because I cannot think of a good way to implement a UI for that, right? There's so much data. Like there's a lot of data. Am I going to show tabs on the top with each result? And how long is it going to take to issue that search? Where do you start? So there's a lot of questions, but it is on the roadmap to issue bulk searching.
Yeah.
Yep.
Feel free to steal my idea of just a blank page with a giant input box. Search button.
Yes, I will do that. I like it. Any other questions?
Is this thing on?
Oh, William.
Elise, I want you to show off the phone number lookup since you focused on domains and IPs.
I don't have a
They're-
Twilio. I don't have a Twilio
Oh,
key.
no.
I know.
I wanted to troll Carruthers and get his phone number.
It's very
in there.
sad. Yeah, I don't. Oh, you didn't share with me your Twilio key.
William, just paste your key into the chat.
Yeah, I need your key, William.
Well, that's a hard pass.
Yeah, take over, William.
Do you have some other indicators we could try, William? Or do you want to take over the screen?
Yeah, you can direct me,
I've-
or you can take over the
I've
screen.
never used Chime for sharing, so I suspect that it's going to puke on my first attempt. I think that's just a bad idea. The demo gods will not show favor.
Well, let's just try. You can all have my phone number. Nope, I do not have a Twilio key. We do not have information. This should say my phone provider is Verizon and it's registered to Elise Rennie, but nope.
What happens if you drop your social security number?
Oh, let's try that. My first pet.
How he does things, and sometimes they're just text searches, and so he can type in Andy is awesome, and he'll get all these links that have to do with text. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be IP addresses or domains. It can be anything that helps you remember the process for doing your job. And this way you don't have to have a million bookmarks necessarily. You could use this instead, and you can share it with your teammates. So what some companies do is they will share link groups with different groups inside or teams inside their company. So they might have one link group for their SOC, one link group for their IR team, et cetera, so that they all have the same links. They can all go to one place. It's kind of like sharing bookmarks, but around indicators.
You said like a non-integrations that it doesn't ship with is difficult to set up. Like, what is it that
Good question. So what makes the integrations difficult to set up? Every API returns a different type of result, right? The format of the JSON that they return is different for each resource. So the struggle is being able to provide a template in order to view that data in a usable way, right? You just don't want to see a JSON dump. You want to see the table view. You want to see the dates parsed out. So you would have to provide the JSON to parse the JSON, if that makes sense.
Sounds like you need an API for your SOC that goes out and reaches out to the tools and returns all the data in ECS. You could even call it Cont3xt.
Okay, we got to use Cont3xt. Full circle. I like it.
Have you open sourced that?
Not yet.
Any other questions? All right, awesome. This is available in version 4 of Arkime. There's more information on arkime.com/context. Go set it up and tell us how you like it. Feature requests, bug reports. I know I keep harping, but really important.